Dinner that night was simple: jollof rice, fried plantain, and roasted chicken. But for Adaora, it felt heavier than any meal she had eaten in months. She sat across from Amara, who was chattering happily about a story they'd read together earlier. Emeka mostly listened, smiling faintly, his eyes occasionally drifting toward Adaora. Each time their gazes met, Adaora quickly looked down at her plate. For the first time in years, she wasn't eating in a rush, wasn't guarding her food like it could be snatched away. Here, everything felt safe, but safety was something Adaora didn't trust. As Amara reached for more plantain, the front door opened without a knock. The sound of heels echoed across the tiles, and then a familiar voice cut through the warmth of the evening. Adaora. Still here. It was Auntie Chinyere. She stepped into the dining room like she owned it, her gold bangles jingling as she folded her arms. Amara's smile faltered. Auntie. Chinyere ignored the child, her eyes fixed on Adaora. I warned you once. Clearly, you didn't take me seriously. Emeka's jaw tightened. Chinyere, not now. But the older woman only laughed softly. Oh, brother, you've always been too soft. This girl, she pointed at Adaora, her finger sharp as a blade, doesn't belong here. And sooner or later, you'll see it. Adaora felt her chest tighten. The warmth she had been clinging to only moments ago began to flicker. For Amara's sake, she stayed silent. But inside, she wondered, was Chinyere right after all? The dinner ended in silence. Amara poked at her rice until Emeka gently told her to finish, and Adaora could hardly taste the food on her plate. Chinyere had left soon after, her perfume still lingering in the air like smoke after a fire. Later, as Adaora helped clear the dishes, Emeka appeared beside her. He didn't speak at first, only took the plates from her hands and set them in the sink. You shouldn't let her words get to you, he said finally, his voice low but steady. Adaora gave a faint laugh that wasn't really a laugh at all. Easy for you to say. You've never had people look at you like you were less than nothing. Emeka's gaze held hers, and for a moment Adaora felt exposed, as though he could see every scar she'd tried to hide. I know more than you think, he said. But what matters is this: you're here because Amara needs you, and because I want you here. No one else decides that. Adaora wanted to believe him, but her heart carried too much history, too many broken promises. She turned away, rinsing her hands under the tap, afraid her face might give her away. Behind her, Emeka's voice softened. Don't let Chinyere chase you off. She thrives on fear. Don't give it to her. Adaora stood frozen, water dripping from her fingers. For the first time, his words didn't feel like charity or pity. They felt like truth. Still, doubt lingered like a shadow that refused to let her rest. The next afternoon, Adaora was walking home from the market with Amara. The little girl skipped ahead, clutching a bag of oranges, while Adaora carried the heavier groceries. The air smelled of roasted corn and dust, the streets buzzing with chatter and car horns. For once, Adaora felt almost normal, like any other young woman running errands with a child. Then she heard her name. Adaora? She froze. The voice was rough but familiar, dragging her back to a place she had fought to forget. Slowly, she turned. A tall man stood by a kiosk, his shirt half-buttoned, his face sharper than memory had painted it. It was Chaik, a boy she had known from her university days. A boy who had once been her closest friend, until everything collapsed. Adaora, it's really you. He stepped closer, his smile uncertain. I thought you disappeared. Amara tugged at Adaora's hand. Who is he? Adaora swallowed hard, her throat dry. Just someone I used to know. Chaik's eyes darted to the grocery bags, then to Amara, then back to Adaora. Something flickered there, curiosity, suspicion, maybe even recognition of the quiet wealth surrounding her now. You look different, he said carefully. Like life turned around for you. Adaora's chest tightened. Life hadn't turned around, not yet. And the last thing she needed was Chaik dragging her back into the shadows she'd escaped. But the way he looked at her made her realize one thing. Her past wasn't going to stay buried forever. That evening, Adaora thought she could leave the past behind by ignoring Chaik. But fate wasn't so kind. 3 days later, as she walked Amara through the estate gates after school, Chike was waiting. He leaned casually against the fence, as if he had every right to be there. Adaora, he called, straightening. Don't run from me. We need to talk. Amara frowned. Is that man bothering you? Adaora forced a smile for the child. Go on inside, sweetheart. Tell the driver I'll be right there. Amara hesitated, but obeyed. When she was gone, Adaora turned sharply to Chike. Why are you following me? Chike raised his hands. I'm not here to hurt you. I heard what happened after you dropped out. I looked for you, Adaora. You vanished. That was the point, she snapped. I left everything behind. Chike studied her for a long moment, then smirked faintly. Everything, except you're living in a mansion now. With that businessman, Emeka Obi. I've seen him in the papers. So tell me, Adaora, did you really escape, or did you just find another cage? Adaora's stomach twisted. His words hit too close, pulling up fears she'd tried to bury. Before she could reply, a car pulled up, sleek, black, familiar. The door opened and Chinyere stepped out. Her eyes swept over the scene, Adaora, tense, Chike smirking. A slow smile spread across Chinyere's face. Well, she said smoothly. Looks like our saintly Adaora isn't so saintly after all. Adaora's blood ran cold. Two worlds, her broken past and her fragile present, had just collided. Chinyere didn't waste a moment. That same night, while Emeka was still at work, she arrived unannounced, gliding into the sitting room where Adaora was helping Amara with homework. Her smile was thin, her tone dripping with false sweetness. So, Adaora, old friends are resurfacing, I hear. Adaora froze. She knew where this was going. Chinyere settled into the armchair like a queen about to deliver judgment. I saw you with him. That man, Chike, was it? He seemed very familiar. You never mentioned him. I don't have to explain myself to you, Adaora said quietly, though her heart hammered in her chest. Oh, but you do, Chinyere purred. Because you're in my brother's house. And if he knew half the things I suspect, do you really think he'd still trust you around his daughter? Amara looked up, confused. Auntie Chinyere, what are you saying? Chinyere's smile sharpened. I'm saying some people wear masks, my dear. And when the mask falls, you see the truth. Adaora gathered Amara close, her voice steady though her hands trembled. That's enough. But Chinyere wasn't done. She leaned forward, her eyes glinting. Mark my words, Adaora. I'll find out what you're hiding. And when I do, you'll wish you never stepped foot in this house. She rose, her perfume heavy in the air, and left without another word. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Amara clung to Adaora's arm, whispering, Don't let her send you away. Adaora held the child tightly, but deep inside, a seed of dread had been planted. Chinyere would dig, and once she found the cracks in Adaora's past, everything could collapse. 2 evenings later, while Emeka worked late, Chinyere sat in a quiet corner of a rooftop bar in town. The city lights glimmered below, and opposite her sat Chike, his expression cautious but curious. I don't know what you think I can give you, he said, sipping his drink. Chinyere's smile was razor-sharp. Information. Stories. The truth about Adaora. Chike leaned back, watching her carefully. She's not the type to talk about her past. And besides, what do you gain by exposing her? What I always gain, Chinyere said smoothly. Protecting my family. That girl is dangerous. My brother is blind to it, and his daughter is getting too attached. I need her out of their lives. Chike hesitated. For a moment, he almost looked guilty. Then he muttered, Adaora isn't dangerous. She's just someone who's been hurt. Then all the easier to break her, Chinyere replied coldly. And you, Chike, are the key. You know where she came from. You know what she ran from. Chike said nothing, but his silence was enough. Chinyere leaned closer, her eyes gleaming. Help me, and I'll make sure you're rewarded. Wealth, connections, and new life. Refuse me, and I'll make Adaora wish she never laid eyes on you again. Chike's jaw tightened. He didn't answer, but Chinyere saw the flicker in his eyes. She knew she had him. Far away in Emeka's home, Adaora lay awake beside a sleeping Amara, her heart restless. She didn't know it yet, but the storm Chinyere was summoning was already on its way. The morning started like any other. Emeka sat at the dining table, scanning the day's newspaper while Adaora poured Amara's cereal. The house smelled of fresh bread and coffee, warm and ordinary. But Emeka's eyes lingered on Adaora longer than usual. She looked tired, restless, as though she hadn't slept. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Adaora forced a smile. "Just long nights. Nothing to worry about." Before Emeka could press further, Chinyere walked in, her voice syrupy sweet. "Oh, brother, you won't believe who I saw Adaora with the other day." Adaora's hands stiffened around the cereal box. Emeka frowned. "Chinyere, not now." "No, you should hear this," Chinyere cut in smoothly. "She was with some man. Tall, sharp-looking. Called her by name as though they shared history." Emeka's brows knitted. He looked at Adaora, his voice calm but heavy. "Is that true?" Adaora swallowed. "He's just someone from my past. Nothing more." Chinyere arched an eyebrow. "Past, present, future. It's all the same when secrets are involved, isn't it?" Amara, oblivious, happily munched her cereal. But Emeka's eyes stayed on Adaora. A small crack of doubt had formed. Chinyere saw it and smiled behind her teacup. The seed was planted. Now all she had to do was water it. The next week, Chinyere arranged another meeting with Chaik, this time at a quiet roadside restaurant on the outskirts of town. The air smelled of roasted suya and pepper, but the mood between them was tense. "You've been stalling," Chinyere said sharply, stirring her drink. "I need something real. Something that proves Adaora isn't who she pretends to be." Chaik shifted uneasily. "She doesn't deserve this. Whatever she's done, she's just trying to move on." "Move on into my brother's house?" Chinyere snapped. "Into his child's life? No. I won't allow it." Chaik rubbed a hand across his face, torn. Finally, his voice dropped. "Fine. She once worked at a bar in Oba. A rough place. Men came and went, and Adaora was desperate. She swore she'd never go back, but it nearly ruined her." Chinyere's eyes glittered. "That's all I need." Chaik looked sick with himself, but Chinyere was already leaning back, satisfied. A thread of Adaora's past was now in her hands, and she would weave it into a rope strong enough to hang her. That evening, Emeka came home early. Chinyere didn't waste time. Over dinner, with Amara busy humming to herself, she said casually, "Brother, did you know Adaora once worked in less respectable places? I wonder what else she's hiding." Emeka froze. His gaze drifted to Adaora, who looked stricken. "Is that true?" he asked quietly. Adaora's throat tightened. She couldn't deny it. But if she admitted it, would everything unravel? The silence at the table was louder than any scream. After dinner, Amara had gone to bed, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the ceiling fan. Emeka sat on the edge of the sofa, his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Adaora stood across from him, her hands twisting nervously. She hated the silence. Finally, Emeka spoke. "Is it true, what Chinyere said, that you worked in a bar?" Adaora swallowed hard. "Yes, it's true." He lifted his head, his eyes searching hers. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. "Because I was ashamed. It wasn't the life I wanted, Emeka. I was young, alone, and desperate. It was the only way to survive." Emeka's jaw tightened. "Survive what?" Adaora hesitated. She could not tell him everything, not yet. Not about the night that forced her to flee. Not about the man whose shadow still lingered in her nightmares. So she gave him a half-truth. "I had no family to help me. I worked there until I could find my way out. That's all." Emeka leaned back, exhaling slowly. He wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered in his eyes. "I wish you had trusted me with this earlier." "I was afraid," Adaora whispered. "Afraid you'd look at me differently." From the hallway, unseen, Chinyere listened with quiet triumph. Adaora thought she had diffused the storm, but Chinyere knew it was only beginning. Because half-truths always left room for suspicion, and suspicion was all she needed. The following morning, Emeka left for work early, still quiet, still carrying the weight of Adaora's confession. Adaora tried to busy herself with chores, but her heart felt heavy. Chinyere, meanwhile, moved like a shadow through the house, watching, waiting. By midday she struck. She found Emeka in his office, setting down a tray of food she had brought under the guise of helping him focus. She lingered, her voice soft and casual. "Brother, I shouldn't interfere, but I worry for you. You deserve a woman with no stains, no secrets. Not someone who hides her past." Emeka frowned. Adaora was honest with me. She told me everything. Everything. Chinyere tilted her head, her smile cold. Or just what she thinks you can forgive. You don't know the half of it. Men came and went in that bar. Adaora was desperate. Desperate women don't always have the luxury of choice. Emeka's hands stilled on his desk. He didn't answer, but the silence told Chinyere her words had pierced deeper than she hoped. That evening, when he returned home, Emeka was distant. He helped Amara with her homework, smiled when necessary, but his eyes no longer lingered on Adaora with the same warmth. Adaora felt it immediately. A space was growing between them, invisible but sharp. Meanwhile, across town, Chike sat alone in his small apartment, his head in his hands. Guilt gnawed at him. He had betrayed Adaora to Chinyere, and now the weight of it made his stomach twist. "She trusted me once," he muttered bitterly, "and I sold her out." For the first time, he wondered if he had made a mistake that could not be undone. It was a rainy afternoon when Adaora saw him again. She had stepped out to buy vegetables from the market when, across the stalls, she spotted Chike. His shoulders were hunched under the drizzle, his clothes damp, but his eyes widened the moment they met hers. Adaora froze. She hadn't expected to see him so soon, not after the mess Chinyere had stirred. For a moment, she considered turning away. But Chike moved toward her, guilt written all over his face. "Adaora," he said quietly, his voice almost drowned by the rain. "Please, I need to talk to you." She stiffened. "Talk? After what you told her?" "I didn't mean to," he pleaded. "Chinyere cornered me. I thought if I gave her a small piece, she'd leave you alone. But she twisted it. I swear I never wanted this." Adaora's chest tightened with anger and sorrow. "Do you realize what you've done? Emeka looks at me differently now. Everything I've built is crumbling, because you couldn't keep your mouth shut." Chike's face hardened with shame. "I know, and I'll fix it. Whatever it takes, I'll make it right." But before Adaora could answer, Chinyere's voice cut through the market air. "Well, well, what a sight." She stood a few steps away, holding an umbrella, her expression triumphant. "So this is where you sneak off to, Adaora? To meet him? I knew it." Adaora's heart sank. Shoppers were already looking their way. Chinyere smiled thinly, enjoying the spectacle. "Emeka will hear of this. And this time, sister-in-law, no excuses will save you." The rain kept falling, cold and relentless. Adaora knew this was the beginning of something far darker. By the time Emeka returned home that evening, Chinyere was waiting. She sat in the living room, perfectly composed, as though she had rehearsed every word. "Brother," she began solemnly, "I saw something today. I wish it wasn't true, but you need to know." Emeka looked tired, loosening his tie. "What is it now, Chinyere?" She leaned forward, her voice soft but heavy with implication. "Adaora. She was in the market with another man. Not just talking. Their closeness." She paused, lowering her gaze as if pained. It didn't look innocent. Emeka's brows furrowed. "Who?" "Chike," she said carefully. "The same man who once claimed to care for her. Doesn't that strike you as strange? That she'd hide and meet him in the rain?" Emeka's jaw tightened. He wanted to dismiss it, to defend Adaora, but doubt was already alive in him. Chinyere saw it in his silence and pressed harder. "You deserve honesty, brother. If she hides her past, and now hides her meetings, what else might she be hiding?" When Adaora entered later, drenched from the rain and visibly shaken, she immediately sensed the heaviness in the room. Emeka's eyes met hers, clouded with suspicion. "Where were you today?" he asked quietly. Adaora froze. "The market. With Chike." His tone cut like a blade. Adaora's lips parted, but no words came. How could she explain without sounding guilty? How could she tell him she hadn't sought Chike, but Chike had found her? Chinyere, watching from the corner, smiled faintly. The crack she had created was widening. Soon, it would become a chasm. Adaora sat on the edge of their bed that night, twisting her hands in her lap. Emeka stood by the window, arms folded, watching the compound lights flicker outside. The distance between them was unbearable. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, controlled. Adaora, I need you to be honest with me. What is Chike to you? Her throat tightened. She could tell him everything. About the nights she worked in that bar, about the shame she had buried, about how Chike had once been both her savior and her mistake. She could finally free herself from the weight of it, but the words would not come. Instead, she whispered, he is no one. Just someone from before. Emeka turned then, his eyes dark with disappointment. No one doesn't follow you through the market. No one doesn't make you look this shaken. Adaora opened her mouth, closed it, and dropped her gaze. Her silence spoke louder than denial. Emeka shook his head. If you cannot trust me with the truth, then what are we building here? He left the room, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. The door to the guest room shut firmly behind him. Adaora's chest ached as tears spilled down her face. She had wanted to protect him from her past, but in doing so, she had only driven him away. Meanwhile, in her own room, Chinyere smiled in the darkness. The rift was deepening just as she had planned. All that remained was one final push. The next weekend, Chinyere made her move. She went to Chike secretly, her face pale with false concern. Chike, she whispered, Adaora is breaking. She needs to talk to someone who understands her past. Please meet her for her sake. Chike hesitated, suspicion flickering in his eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because I care, Chinyere lied smoothly. I only want her to find peace. If you refuse, she'll keep drowning. Reluctantly, Chike agreed. Chinyere set the time and place, a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Then she slipped home, waiting for her next act. That evening, she went to Emeka. Brother, she said gently, I think you should know where your wife has gone tonight. She slid the cafe's address across the table. If I am wrong, forgive me. But if I am right, you deserve to see it with your own eyes. Emeka's stomach knotted as he read the paper. Against his better judgment, he grabbed his car keys. At the cafe, Adaora sat across from Chike. Her face was weary but determined. Chike, this must end, she said firmly. I cannot keep being pulled into the past. I have a family now. You must let me go. Chike nodded slowly, his expression one of regret. I understand. I only wanted to explain myself, to apologize for the trouble I caused. After today, I'll never bother you again. It was a farewell, nothing more. But just as Adaora rose to leave, a shadow fell across their table. Emeka stood there, his face thunderous, his eyes filled with betrayal. And behind him, unseen in the corner, Chinyere watched with quiet triumph. The cafe went silent as Emeka's voice thundered. So it's true, he said, his jaw tight. You swore he was no one, yet here you are, sitting with him like lovers. Adaora's face flushed hot. Emeka, it's not what you think. I came here to end it. End what? He snapped. How do you end something that supposedly doesn't exist? People were beginning to stare. Chike stood awkwardly, hands raised. Please, Emeka, it's not what it looks like. She wanted to cut ties. Shut your mouth, Emeka barked, fury flashing in his eyes. Adaora's lips trembled, but something inside her hardened. She was tired of shame, tired of silence, tired of watching her life unravel because of secrets she never wanted to carry. With a shaking voice, she spoke. Yes, Chike is part of my past. I knew him before I met you. Back then, I was desperate, broken, doing things I swore I would never speak of again. He saw me at my lowest, in a place I'm not proud of. That's the truth, Emeka. I was trying to protect you from it. Protect us. The words hung in the air like a wound laid bare. For a moment, Emeka just stared at her, torn between anger and the ache of understanding. And then from the corner, Chinyere's voice cut through the silence like a blade. You see, brother, she said sweetly, stepping forward. The woman you chose has been lying from the very beginning. How many more secrets is she hiding? Can you even trust her anymore? Emeka's fists clenched. Adaora's tears streamed freely now. The room was thick with tension, betrayal, revelation, manipulation all colliding at once. This was the moment that would decide everything. The cafe seemed to shrink, everyone watching, breaths held. Adaora's confession still hung heavy in the air. Chike quietly slipped out, leaving the storm behind. This was no longer his battle. Emeka's chest rose and fell as he looked from his wife to his sister. He saw Adaora, raw and broken, her hands trembling, her eyes pleading not for forgiveness, but for the chance to be seen as she truly was. And then he saw Chinyere, her lips curved in satisfaction, certain her words would tip the scale. Adaora, Emeka finally said, his voice low. You should have told me. You should have trusted me enough to share your truth. Adaora's tears spilled freely. I was afraid you'd see me differently. Afraid you'd turn away. And you, Chinyere, Emeka turned sharply, his tone hard. You've been feeding this fire. Whispering doubts. Stoking mistrust. Do you call this loyalty? For the first time, Chinyere's confidence cracked. I was only protecting you. No, Emeka cut her off, his voice ringing through the cafe. You were protecting yourself. From being forgotten. From losing your place in my life. Chinyere froze, her mouth opening, then shutting. Emeka stepped closer to Adaora, his hand brushing against hers. I will not lose my wife because of shadows from the past. She stood here today and gave me her truth. That is more than you ever gave me, sister. Adaora let out a shuddering breath. Relief and disbelief mingled in her chest. Chinyere's face hardened, tears glistening in her eyes. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her heels striking sharp against the tiled floor. Emeka pulled Adaora into his arms, holding her as though the world might tear her away if he loosened his grip. We will rebuild, he whispered. Not on lies, not on fear, but on truth. Adaora nodded into his chest, her heart steady for the first time in weeks. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but tonight, she had won back more than Emeka's trust. She had reclaimed herself. And as they left the cafe together, side by side, the stares of strangers no longer mattered. Their battle was not with the world. It was with the shadows between them. And together, they had chosen the light. You see how jealousy is a fire that burns only the one who carries it. Chinyere's envy led her to lies, but the truth rose like the sun at daybreak and scattered the darkness. Remember this, no matter how far falsehood travels, truth will always catch up. Hold fast to trust, for it is more precious than gold, and guard your heart against envy, for it can destroy even the closest bonds. Let this tale remind us that though forgiveness may come, the scars of betrayal remain as a warning. May we walk in truth, and may jealousy never find a home in our hearts.